All right, so I want you to imagine a sound.
Okay.
It's a sound that, I mean, literally hundreds of millions of people probably know better than their own favorite song.
Mm.
You're sitting at home, maybe it's evening, the air conditioner's humming, the fans are whirring, the lights are bright, you're just, settling in, and then clunk.
Ah, the sound of the stabilizer tripping. Or the inverter groaning right before it gives up.
Exactly. And then just silence, that heavy, thick silence.
Mm-hmm.
The fans spin down to a halt, the Wi-Fi router blinks out, and the room starts to get warm, like immediately.
Right. Now, for a lot of people listening, maybe in a big city in the West, that's just a momentary annoyance. You go check the fuse box, you wait 5 minutes, no big deal.
But I want you to completely shift your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to imagine you're a farmer in a village in, say, Uttar Pradesh or Bihar. It's the middle of summer. It is 45 degrees Celsius outside.
I'm feeling it.
And that clunk. It doesn't just mean your Netflix paused.
It means your water pump stopped.
Right. And when the water pump stops,
The crops don't get water.
and when the crops don't get water, the yield drops.
And when the yield drops, your income for the season just vanishes.
So in that context, electricity isn't just a utility bill you pay online. It's a raw material. It's survival.
It's the absolute lifeblood of the rural economy. And, the problem isn't just that the power goes out. That's almost predictable.
No.
It's that when the power is on, it's angry.
Angry. That's an interesting way to put it.
It's volatile. It's unpredictable. We're talking about voltage fluctuations that they would literally make a delicate piece of European electronics just pop, explode.
And today, we are doing a deep dive into a company that has built an absolute empire by obsessing over that exact problem, over that chaos.
Yeah, a company that's thrived not by ignoring the messy, difficult reality of the Indian power grid, but by engineering a solution directly for it.
It's a really fascinating story of what I guess you could call rugged innovation. We are doing a deep dive into UTL Solar.
A private manufacturing giant that is, I would argue, one of the most important companies you've likely never heard of, or at the very least never understood correctly.
Well, for sure, because there's a ton of confusion around the name.
Massive confusion.
And before we get into the solar panels and the inverters, we have to plant a giant, flashing red flag right here at the start. I need everyone listening to pause for a second. Listen very closely.
Please do.
If you open your brokerage app right now and you search for UTL, you are probably about to make a very, very expensive mistake.
This is critical. We need to clear this up right now. There is a publicly listed company called UTL Industries.
Okay.
If you look it up, it's a penny stock. It trades for, pocket change. Its revenues are tiny. The fundamentals are, well, let's just say they're not what we're discussing today.
And just to be crystal clear, it has absolutely nothing to do with the solar company we're profiling.
Nothing. Zero. Zilch. If you buy that stock thinking you're getting a piece of the solar manufacturing giant we're about to analyze, you are buying a shell.
And we are also not talking about Unitil, are we?
No, that's a utility company in the U.S. We're talking about UTL Solar, a privately held, unlisted manufacturer based in India. You cannot buy shares of it on the public market.
Okay. I am so glad we got that out of the way. I really don't want any angry emails from listeners who bought the wrong stock.
Agreed.
So our mission today is to really get under the hood of this private beast. We've got a massive stack of sources here. We've got technical spec sheets, dealer price lists, government compliance reports, and some pretty rare financial data on their revenue growth.
Yeah, and we're going to try and answer a few key questions, like how does a company grow to nearly 1,000 crores in revenue, basically bootstrap?
Without any VC money.
Right. And how do you build a distribution network that honestly looks more like a sub company's than a tech company's?
And the big one is their technology, this rMPPT thing they talk about all the time. Is it actually revolutionary, or is it just clever marketing?
Let's start there. Let's start with the problem they're solving.
Okay, so solar power sounds pretty generic to me. You put a panel on a roof, sun hits it, electrons move, you get electricity. Physics is physics, right?
Yeah.
Why does the Indian context, as you put it, matter so much?
Because.
Why can't I just take a top-of-the-line solar inverter from Germany or California and just, stick it on a roof in a village in India?
Because physics might operate in a vacuum, but technology operates in reality, and the reality of the Indian power grid is unique.
That's one word for it.
In a stable market like the US or Germany, The grid acts like this infinite stable battery. It's always there. The voltage is a perfect 110 or 230 volts. It's a freshly paved 8-lane highway.
Okay, I get the analogy. And in rural India?
In rural India, the grid is off-roading on a mountain trail during a storm.
Okay.
The voltage can swing from, say, 90 volts all the way up to 300 volts. And not over the course of a day, but in a matter of seconds.
Wait, 90 to 300? That is a gigantic range.
It's massive, and it's incredibly destructive. That kind of swing is enough to fry most standard appliances. But here's a specific problem for solar.
Go on.
A standard solar inverter, that's the brain of the system, the device converting DC power from the panel to AC for your house, it's designed for that smooth paved highway.
Right.
When the grid voltage starts jumping around like that, a standard inverter goes into what's called safety mode. It disconnects itself to avoid getting fried.
So hold on. Right at the moment when you need the power the most, because the grid is acting up, your solar inverter just quits.
It quits, exactly. It's like having a car that stalls every single time you hit a pothole. If you live on a road that's nothing but potholes, that car is completely useless to you.
It doesn't matter how powerful the engine is if the transmission can't handle the bumps.
You're not going anywhere. And UTL realized that the core problem wasn't the solar panel, it was the brain connecting that panel to the chaotic grid.
And this brings us right to their big technical claim.
Yeah.
I saw this plastered all over their brochures and spec sheets. They claim their inverters generate up to 30% more power than the competition.
They do.
Now, I have to be the skeptic here. 30% is a massive, massive number in engineering. Usually you're fighting for a 1 or 2% efficiency gain.
Right.
If Apple came out and said they improved iPhone battery life by 30% overnight, it would be the biggest news story in the world. 30% sounds a bit like magic.
It does. It sounds like snake oil until you dig into the how, and it all centers on an acronym that's all over their technical documents.
Yeah.
rMPPT.
rMPPT. Okay, let's break that down for everyone. No jargon. First, what is MPPT?
So MPPT stands for Maximum Power Point Tracking. It's actually a standard technology in most modern solar inverters.
Right.
Let's use an analogy. Imagine you're riding a bicycle that has, a lot of gears. You are the solar panel. The road ahead of you is the amount of sunlight.
Okay, I'm on the bike, I'm pedaling.
Right. When the road is flat and easy, that's bright, consistent, full sunlight, you want to be in a high gear.
Yeah, to go as fast as possible.
You pedal hard, you go fast, you're generating maximum power. But then, all of a sudden, you hit a really steep hill. That hill represents a cloud passing over the sun, or the panel getting too hot, which reduces its efficiency.
Or the grid voltage suddenly dropping.
Exactly. The conditions change instantly. Now, if you stay in that high gear while you're trying to climb this steep hill, what happens?
My legs burn out. I slow right down. I might even just stop. I stall.
You stall. To keep moving efficiently, what do you have to do?
That's a downshift. Find the right gear.
You have to find that sweet spot gear where your effort perfectly matches the resistance of the hill. An inverter's job is to constantly shift those gears. It's adjusting the voltage and current to get the absolute maximum power out of the panel, no matter what the sun is doing.
So standard MPPT is basically the automatic gear shifter.
Correct. But here's the catch. Most standard MPPT algorithms are, they're a bit slow. They're like a rider who takes, say, 5 seconds to even realize they're on a hill, and then another 5 seconds to fumble with the gear shifter.
And in those 10 seconds,
you've lost all your momentum. You've lost power. You're wasting all this energy just trying to find the right gear. Now, add the R from UTL's technology. It stands for rapid.
Rapid maximum power point tracking.
UTL has a patented logic built into their microcontrollers that essentially shifts gears almost instantly. It scans the sunlight conditions and the grid voltage thousands of times a second. It anticipates the shift before it even has to happen.
So when a cloud suddenly drifts over or the grid voltage spikes from 150 to 250?
The rMPPT adjusts immediately. It doesn't fumble. It doesn't stall. It certainly doesn't disconnect. It just it rides the waves. It finds that perfect gear in a microsecond.
So that 30% claim, it isn't about the panel itself being magical. It's about not wasting time during the chaotic moments.
That's it, precisely. It's the accumulated save. Think about it. If a competitor's inverter disconnects or runs inefficiently for a total of, say, 2 hours over the course of a day because it's constantly hunting for the right voltage, or it's tripping on and off,
while the UTL one is just chugging along perfectly,
and UTL's inverter runs perfectly during that exact same time, that difference in uptime and efficiency adds up. By sunset, you've generated up to 30% more energy.
That is a really crucial distinction. It's not about a higher peak efficiency in lab. It's about a higher average efficiency in a real-world chaotic environment.
And that is the very definition of contextual engineering. They didn't build a better inverter for a lab in Germany. They built a better inverter for a village in Uttar Pradesh.
Which brings us to their star product, the one that kept coming up in all the research, the Gamma Plus inverter.
Yes.
It looks like a standard box on the wall, maybe a bit industrial. But the marketing is so specific. They don't show it powering a sleek electric vehicle or a fancy espresso machine.
No, they show it powering a water pump.
A 1 HP water pump.
And that is the real India focus we've been talking about. A 1 HP, that's 1 horsepower water pump, is like the holy grail for a rural household or a small farm.
Why is that particular load so difficult to run? I mean, 1 HP doesn't sound like a colossal amount of power.
It's not about the running power, it's all about the startup. There's a technical term for it called inrush current.
Okay.
When you first turn on an electric motor like a pump or an old refrigerator compressor or an air conditioner, for just a split second, it demands 3, 4, sometimes even 5 times its normal running power. It needs a massive kick to get the radiator spinning from a dead stop.
Kickstart.
Right. And a standard 1 kVA inverter, it sees that massive sudden spike in demand and its little brain thinks, whoa, short circuit, overload, something is terribly wrong, and it does the only thing it knows how to do.
It cuts the power.
It trips and you hear that clunk,
Yeah.
silence.
The farmer can run his fan, he can charge his phone, he can watch TV, but the one thing he really needs it for, getting water out of the ground, it can't do.
Which basically renders the whole expensive solar system useless for its primary economic purpose.
And the Gamma Plus is different how?
It's engineered with a really high surge capacity. It's built specifically to absorb that kickstart spike from a 1 HP pump without tripping. It's designed to see that huge demand, understand what it is, and just power right through it.
So it allows a small, affordable, residential-sized solar setup to run a heavy inductive load.
That's the magic. It's the democratization of productive power. You don't need a massive, expensive commercial system to run your pump anymore. You just need a smarter, small system.
And that is why they're winning. The sales pitch isn't abstract. They aren't selling green energy to save the planet. They're selling reliability to save your crop.
And that pitch works. It works in every language, in every village.
Okay, so to build these things, these inverters that don't trip, these panels that can handle the extreme heat, you need parts. And looking at UTL's company profile, they seem almost obsessed with doing it all themselves.
Oh, absolutely. It's all about vertical integration. It's a classic business strategy, famously used by companies like, Apple or Tesla. But UTL has taken it to an extreme in the Indian context.
They make the panels, they make the inverters, they make the batteries.
The whole stack, and not just 1 or 2 types. They make solar panels ranging from tiny 40-watt squares that you might use to power a single streetlight, all the way up to massive 590-watt monoperc modules designed for commercial solar farms.
And in the inverters?
Over 10 models with more than 100 different capacities, from a tiny 1 kVA system for a small home up to a 120 kVA beast for a factory.
But let's talk about the batteries, because
Yeah.
that's the heavy part, literally and figuratively. And the battery world is complicated right now.
The battery is the heart of any off-grid or backup system. When the sun goes down or the grid fails, the battery is all you have.
Right. And the whole world seems to be moving to lithium-ion. We all know this. Our phones, our laptops, our EVs. It's lighter, it lasts longer, it's more efficient.
It is. But UTL still manufactures and sells huge quantities of traditional tubular lead-acid batteries.
The big, heavy, clunky ones with the acid that you have to top up with distilled water every few months.
Very same. The technology that's been around for over 150 years.
So why? I mean, if they're this innovative tech company with rMPPT, why are they sticking with 150-year-old battery tech? Why not just pivot 100% to lithium like everyone else?
2 big reasons. First, the real India is incredibly price sensitive, and lead acid is still significantly cheaper upfront.
Okay, that makes sense.
But more importantly, it's rugged. It can take a beating in hot, dusty conditions, and this is the critical part, it is repairable.
Repairable.
Think about it. Every single mechanic in every village in India knows how to service a lead-acid battery.
Yeah.
They know how to check the specific gravity of the acid, how to clean the terminals, how to top up the water.
That's true.
If a lithium-ion battery pack dies in a remote village, it's a black box. It's a sealed unit. You have to throw it away or ship it all the way back to the factory in the city. It's a huge hassle.
Whereas if a lead-acid battery has an issue,
The local guy can often diagnose it and maybe even fix it, and if it's truly dead, the recycling ecosystem is perfect. You can sell the old battery for scrap and get cash back for the lead. There's real residual value.
so they're basically straddling two eras. They're serving the legacy lead-acid market and the modern lithium market at the same time.
Correct. They manufacture both.
Mm.
And by making everything themselves, the panel, the inverter, and the battery, they offer the customer something incredibly valuable. In business, we call it one neck to choke.
One neck to choke. That sounds aggressive.
It's a common term, but it's accurate. Imagine you buy a solar system from the open market. You buy your panels from brand A, your inverter from brand B, and your batteries from brand C.
A typical setup.
6 months later, the system stops working. You call brand B, the inverter company, they test it and say, oh, our inverter is fine. Brand C's battery must be bad.
Okay.
So you call brand C. They send a guy out who says, no, our battery's fine. It's just not getting charged. Brand A's panels aren't generating enough voltage.
The blame game. The circular firing squad. And the customer is stuck in the middle with no power and 3 different service numbers to call.
It's a nightmare, especially for a rural customer who might not be technically literate. With UTL, the panel, the inverter, and the battery all have the same logo on them. If it breaks, there is only one number to call. There's no passing the buck.
That single point of accountability.
For a rural customer, that is worth its weight in gold. It builds trust.
And trust brings us to the next massive pillar of their business. Because you can have the best tech in the world. You can have rMPPT and vertical integration. But if you can't get that box to a village in the middle of Madhya Pradesh, it doesn't matter. It's just a paperweight in a warehouse in Delhi.
This is the part of the story where UTL stops looking like a tech company and starts looking like a Tupperware company. Or an FMCG giant like Unilever or Nestle.
The distribution network, I was looking at the numbers in our source deck, and they are just staggering for a private B2B-focused company.
Let's just walk through the hierarchy. It starts at the top with 725 distributors.
These are the regional bosses.
Yeah, think of them as the state or regional level partners. They hold the heavy stock, they have the big warehouses, they supply the next level down.
Which is?
5,546 dealers. This is the real army.
Wow, over 5,500.
And these are your local electronic shops, the battery guys, the electrical hardware stores in every small town and district headquarters.
That's a massive ground force.
But then there's this third layer, which I think is the most interesting part of their strategy, the UTL shop.
Over 1,100 of them. This is their exclusive franchise model, right?
It is, and reading the details of how it works, it's a piece of genius financial engineering.
So how is a shop different from just a regular dealer?
A regular dealer is multi-brand. They'll sell UTL right next to Luminous, Microtech, Exide, all the competitors. A UTL shop is exclusive. It's branded from top to bottom. It looks and feels like an official UTL showroom.
Okay, but lots of companies do exclusive stores. What's the genius part?
The hook is in the franchise fee.
I read this in the notes. There's something about getting a refund.
Yes. So, to open a shop, a franchisee has to pay a fee to UTL. This is standard. It shows you have skin in the game. It filters out the people who aren't serious.
Right.
But UTL turns around and says, look, we don't actually want your fee revenue. We want your sales revenue. So they make a deal. If you, the franchisee, hit a specific sales target, for example, selling 1 crore rupees worth of product in 2 years, UTL refunds 100% of your franchise fee.
Wow. So the franchise is effectively free if you can sell.
It's free if you hustle.
Damn.
Exactly. It turns the fee from a sunk cost into a performance deposit. It aligns the incentives perfectly. That shop owner wakes up every single morning thinking, I need to sell UTL product to get my initial investment back.
They become evangelists for the brand. They're not just clerks anymore. They're partners in the business.
And because the core product, like the Gamma Plus, actually solves a real painful problem for their neighbors, the customers are happy. The products don't come back.
And happy customers in a small town. They talk.
You have to understand the dynamic of rural India. It's a high-trust, word-of-mouth society. You don't sell solar panels in rural Bihar with Twitter ads. You sell them at the local tea shop.
Right.
If the Sarpanch, the village head, gets a UTL system and his water pump runs during a 5-hour power cut, the entire village knows about it by evening. It's the best marketing you could ever ask for.
It creates a viral loop, but a physical, real-world one.
And look at where they're deploying this army. They are not fighting for the rooftops of the fancy neighborhoods in South Mumbai or South Delhi.
No.
Those markets are saturated. They're obsessed with aesthetics, with brands they see on Instagram. UTL is in Tier 2, Tier 3, and Tier 4 towns. The places the big city folks forget exist.
They're serving the unserved, the real mass market.
They're playing on a field where the giant conglomerates, your Tatas and Adonis, are less nimble. The big players want to sign 100-megawatt contracts with the state government.
While UTL is happy selling one inverter at a time to a grocer.
But they sell a million of them. It's the classic Walmart strategy. Win on volume, not on prestige.
And to support that kind of volume, you need serious manufacturing muscle. You can't feed 5,500 dealers from a small workshop. You need a machine.
A very big machine.
Let's talk about that scale. We mentioned they already have 4 plants. But the source material we have really highlights a massive expansion plan. This seems to be the pivot point for the company moving into a new league.
This is the Ratlam project in Madhya Pradesh.
They're building a brand new facility, and the numbers I saw are pretty eye-popping. A 500 crore rupee investment. And the target capacity is 5 gigawatts.
Let's just pause on that number for a second. 5 gigawatts. That's 5,000 megawatts.
Can you give us a sense of scale? What does 5 gigawatts of manufacturing capacity even mean?
Okay. For context, a typical large-scale nuclear reactor like one of the units at Kudankulam in India is about 1 gigawatt.
So,
UTL is building enough manufacturing capacity to produce the equivalent of 5 nuclear reactors worth of power-generating equipment every single year.
that is a monstrous leap in scale. Their current capacity is around 1 gigawatt. Really.
For batteries and inverters, yeah. Maybe a bit less for panels. So this is, at minimum, a 5x expansion in one go.
And what does that do for them strategically?
It moves them from being a large SME, a small or medium enterprise, to a bona fide industrial giant. And it creates a huge moat.
A moat, a defensive barrier.
Exactly. In manufacturing, scale is your best defense. When you're going to the market to buy solar cells and lithium to feed 5 gigawatts of production, you get pricing in terms that a smaller competitor can't even dream of.
You have massive leverage over your suppliers.
Massive. And you can spread your fixed costs, your R&D, your marketing, your management overhead over millions and millions of units. It allows UTL to keep their prices low for the end customer while still maintaining healthy margins for themselves.
It makes it very, very hard for a new player to enter the market and compete.
You can't just start this in your backyard anymore. The barrier to entry just got 5 gigawatts higher.
Okay, speaking of margins and money, let's follow the cash. Because an expansion like that, 500 crores, that costs a lot of real money.
It does.
Usually, when a company is growing 50% year over year and building a massive new factory, you hear about them raising a huge round of debt. You hear about big bank loans, or you hear about a splashy IPO where they ring the bell at the stock exchange.
And that is the anomaly here. That is the real head-scratcher in the UTL story.
They're a private company. They haven't raised any venture capital money that we can see. They haven't gone public.
And according to the financial reports we were able to analyze, they are funding this primarily through internal accruals.
Okay, translate that for the non-finance listener. What does internal accruals mean in simple terms?
It means they are paying for the new house with the cash they saved from their job. They aren't taking out a mortgage. They aren't asking rich uncles for money. They are using their own profits from their existing operations to build this giant new factory.
That is incredibly rare in the capital-intensive solar sector. Most solar companies burn cash like it's going out of style. It's usually a race to see who can lose money the slowest while growing the fastest.
It implies that their core business selling those inverters and batteries through that massive dealer network is highly, highly profitable. We saw some data suggesting that dealer margins are actually quite tight, maybe in the 4% to 10% range.
That's tight for the dealer, but
But UTL's manufacturing margins, because of that vertical integration, must be very healthy. They are capturing the value at every single step of the chain.
they are a cash cow that is feeding its own enormous growth.
And that growth is accelerating. Just look at the revenue figures. FY24, that's the fiscal year that ended in March 2024, they closed at roughly 934 crore.
Almost 1,000 crore.
Yeah.
And the target for FY25 is 1,400 crore. That's almost 50% year-over-year growth.
And the sources we have indicate they already crossed 700 crore in just the first half of the fiscal year. So they aren't just, hoping to get there. They are on track to smash that target.
Now, there is a massive external engine driving this too, isn't there? It's not just that they're a good company. The entire market is exploding. The government is practically throwing money at this sector.
Oh, yeah. The PM Surya Ghar scheme.
Surya Ghar. That translates to sun home, right?
Yes. It's the Prime Minister's flagship initiative to put rooftop solar on residential homes all across India.
And what's the scale of this ambition?
The stated goal is 10 million households, 10 million solar rooftops. To make it happen, the government is offering very generous subsidies, covering up to 60% of the cost for small systems, up to 2 kilowatts.
60%. I mean, that makes it an absolute no-brainer for a middle-class homeowner.
It basically makes the system free within just a few years of electricity bill savings. If you spend, say, 50,000 rupees and the government gives you 30,000 back almost immediately, the payback period is tiny.
It's created a gold rush.
A massive gold rush. And
Yeah.
UTL is standing right there, perfectly positioned, selling the picks and shovels.
They've got the nationwide network, they've got the product that's designed for Indian conditions, and now the government is essentially paying customers to buy it.
It is the definition of a perfect storm. The
Yeah.
wind is at their back.
But, and there is always a but in these deep dives, this whole story sounds a little too perfect. A 30-year-old company, bootstrapped, profitable, huge growth, great tech. It sounds like a fairy tale.
Right.
Where are the cracks in the armor?
Oh, there are cracks. And some of them are pretty deep. If you're looking at this company with a truly critical eye, if you were an investor looking to buy in or a large company looking to partner with them, you have to look at what I call the black box problem.
The black box.
Mhm.
Okay, let's talk about governance.
UTL is, at its heart, a founder-led, family-owned business. It was started by two engineers, Yogesh Dua and Pawan Garg, way back in 1996. And by all accounts, they are brilliant, they're hands-on, they built this entire machine from scratch,
Wait.
but they are still running it. And as a private company, we have very little visibility into things like a succession plan. We don't know if there's a professional CEO and a deep management bench waiting in the wings. This creates what we call key person risk.
Explain that. What does that mean in practice?
It means what happens if something happens to Yogesh or Pawan. If they decide to retire tomorrow, or if there's an unexpected health issue, who runs the company? The company, from the outside, is them right now.
So all the institutional knowledge, the strategy, the vision, it's locked in their heads.
Then scaling a company from 100 crores to 1,000 crores takes one set of skills. It's about hustle, sales, great engineering. But scaling from 1,000 crores to 5,000 crores, managing a 5GW manufacturing complex, international exports, thousands of employees, intricate government compliance, that takes a completely different set of skills.
It takes professional corporate management.
Exactly. Can the founders make that leap from entrepreneurs to corporate executives? Or will they become the bottleneck to their own company's growth?
It's the classic founder's trap. You build something amazing, but you become the lid on the jar that stops it from getting bigger.
And because they are private, they don't have an independent board of directors that answers to public shareholders. There's no external pressure forcing them to professionalize. So as a partner or a large customer, you're not betting on an institution, you're betting on two guys. You're betting on their health, their relationship, and their decision-making. That's a big risk.
That's the internal risk, the enemy within, so to speak. What about the sharks circling in the water? Because UTL is not the only solar company in India.
Not by a long shot. The competitive landscape is absolutely brutal. UTL has done a fantastic job carving out a niche in the unserved markets, the villages, the small towns. But now, the big boys are coming for that market.
And who are we talking about here?
We're talking about a Tata Power Solar.
Yeah.
We're talking about Adani Solar, where these aren't just companies, they are full-blown conglomerates.
Tata and Adani. I mean, those are two of the biggest, most powerful names in all of Indian business.
They have essentially infinitely deep pockets. Tata is a household name with a century of trust built up. Adani controls the ports, the logistics, the energy infrastructure.
So what's the specific threat they pose to UTL?
Price. It all comes down to a price war. If Adani decides tomorrow that he wants the rural rooftop market, he can afford to undercut UTL's prices by 20% and hold them there for 5 years just to bleed them out.
Predatory pricing.
He can lose money on solar to win the market share because he's making billions in his ports and coal businesses. UTL is self-funded. They're growing using their own profits.
They cannot afford to bleed for 5 years.
No way. Their great strength, the internal accruals, becomes their greatest weakness in a protracted price war. They don't have a massive war chest of VC money or conglomerate profits to burn through.
So if a real price war starts, UTL is extremely vulnerable.
Highly vulnerable.
And then there's the elephant in the room, or maybe I should say the dragon in the room. China.
The supply chain vulnerability. This is an industry-wide problem, but it affects UTL in a very specific way.
Oh, so.
UTL assembles solar panels, but they don't manufacture the solar cells, the actual blue silicon wafers inside the panels that do the magic.
Wait, I thought they were vertically integrated. There's a difference.
A huge difference. The cell is the core semiconductor technology. The panel is the package you put it in. India, as a country, has very little cell manufacturing capacity. Most of it, the vast majority, is imported from China or Southeast Asia. UTL also doesn't mine the lithium for their batteries.
So they are fundamentally an assembler of high-tech imported components.
It's highly sophisticated assembly and engineering, but yes. At the end of the day, they are dependent on imports for their key raw materials. So if the Indian rupee crashes against the US dollar, their input costs skyrocket overnight.
And what if there's a geopolitical spat? I mean, India and China don't exactly have the warmest relationship these days.
That's the existential risk. If border tensions in the Himalayas flare up and the Indian government suddenly freezes or heavily taxes imports from China, UTL's factories could grind to a halt. They would be starved of raw material. That is a massive geopolitical risk hanging over their entire business.
And speaking of the government, we talked about how the subsidy scheme helps them. But that's a double-edged sword, isn't it? The government can also hurt them.
The subsidy giveth and the subsidy taketh away. This is the ALMM risk.
Another acronym, what is ALMM?
It stands for the Approved List of Models and Manufacturers. To be eligible for that juicy Surya-Ghar subsidy, the solar panels you install must be on this official government list. It's a white list, a VIP club.
So if UTL for some reason falls off that list?
They are effectively locked out of the entire residential subsidy market overnight. No subsidy means the price for the consumer basically doubles. Their sales would collapse.
And getting on the list and staying on it requires strict adherence to government norms.
Very strict localization norms. You have to prove you aren't just taking Chinese panels and sticking a new label on them. You have to pass factory audits. And if the government decides to change the criteria overnight, which, as we know, happens in India, UTL could suddenly find itself non-compliant.
So their entire growth projection, that 1,400 crore target, is fundamentally tethered to a government policy that they do not control.
That is a terrifying thought for a business owner, but it is the reality of doing business in a regulated sector in India. You live by the policy, you die by the policy.
So, to sum up the risks, we have a strong company with a huge moat in distribution, but it's facing potentially existential threats from giant competitors, a fragile global supply chain, and unpredictable regulation. Where do they go from here? What does the future look like for UTL Solar?
I see three very distinct paths they're already taking. We can call them the growth vectors. The first one is exports.
Looking beyond India.
Absolutely. Think about the core problem they solved so well. A bad grid, extreme voltage fluctuations, a need for rugged, reliable gear, a need for easily repairable batteries. Is that problem unique to India?
Not at all. That sounds like Nigeria, Kenya, Bangladesh, Vietnam. It sounds like most of the global south.
Exactly. A fancy, delicate German inverter that was designed for the stable grid of Munich will fail miserably in rural Lagos. It'll trip every 10 minutes. But the UTL Gamma Plus, it will thrive there.
So they're realizing that their bug, the chaotic Indian grid, was actually a feature.
It was a feature. It forced them to build a product that the rest of the developing world desperately needs. They can export the India model. That's a huge, huge runway for growth.
Okay, what's the second vector?
The second is premiumization.
Moving up the food chain within India.
Right. The Indian middle class is evolving. They don't just want basic backup power anymore. They want smart power. They want a slick app on their phone that shows how much money they saved today and how many trees they planted. They want lithium batteries that look like sleek home appliances, not like heavy industrial lead boxes in the corner.
The iPhone-timification of home energy?
You could call it that. And UTL is rolling out these premium products. They're trying to capture that customer who is graduating from survival power to lifestyle power.
And the third path?
The third is just riding the Surya-Ghar wave to its logical conclusion. The domestic market is just so unbelievably big. Even if UTL loses market share to Tata or Adani, let's say they go from a 10% share of the market to a 5% share, the pie itself is growing so fast that their absolute sales will still grow enormously.
A rising tide lifts all boats, even the ones with heavy lead-acid anchors.
That's a very good way to put it.
Okay, so as we wrap this deep dive up, let's try to synthesize everything. We've covered a lot of ground here. Engineering, business models, finance, geopolitics. What is the one core idea the listener should take away about UTL Solar?
For me, I think the core insight is about contextual engineering.
Contextual engineering. Expand on that for me.
Silicon Valley has this famous mantra, move fast and break things. UTL's philosophy seems to be the exact opposite. It's move deliberately and build things that don't break.
Because their customers literally cannot afford for things to break. A broken water pump isn't an inconvenience, it's a disaster.
Exactly. They succeeded not by innovating on the fundamental science of solar cells. They didn't invent a new molecule in a lab. They didn't win a Nobel Prize in physics. They innovated on the application of the technology. They engineered a robust bridge between delicate, high-tech solar panels and the brute force reality of an Indian village.
They accepted the constraints of their environment and designed for them rather than trying to wish them away.
Yes. And then they built a massive distribution army to guard that bridge.
A human moat. 5,500 dealers who have a direct financial incentive, that franchise fee refund, to never let a competitor get a foothold in their town. That is so much harder to replicate than any microchip design.
It is.
But the big question remains.
The question is all about governance. UTL has conquered the chaos of the Indian power grid. Now they have to conquer the chaos of scale.
Can a founder-led, family-style business successfully transition into a professional corporate institution?
Can the brilliant creators of the machine learn to let go and let the machine run itself? That is the billion-dollar test. If they fail that test, they'll likely stay a very profitable, respectable, mid-sized player. Maybe they get acquired by one of the giants. But if they solve that governance puzzle,
Then what?
if they solve that, they become a legacy company. They become the next Tata or Mahindra of the green energy space.
It is a fascinating story and one we will definitely be watching closely. And next time you're driving through a Tier 2 town in India or visiting a village, just look up. Look past the satellite dishes on the roofs. You might just see a blue rectangle with a UTL logo silently fighting off the voltage fluctuations.
And now you'll know the hidden empire that's behind it.
That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening. Keep learning.